It is Barkerween! What up, y'all? Welcome back to Phantom of the India Review. I am your host, Axeman Dill. You know the master of horror, Clive Barker. Very deranged man with a lot of insanity in his artwork. Stephen King might be a coward compared to this dude. He shows true darkness. I love Stephen King, don't get it twisted. And this final week of October, we are going to be doing 3 bangers from the man. That's right. And today we are starting off with one. I mean, here at Drip Fed Dread, it only makes sense. It's only right if we start off with a movie entitled Dread. Will you face your fear? I know I keep saying it, but we are on the journey of 4,000 subscribers by Halloween Eve, and we are chugging along to it. So if that sounds fun to you, and if you want to star in a documentary about your own fears, come hang out and subscribe. Dread is a 2009 British horror film starring Jackson Rathbone, that boy you love from Twilight, and Sean Evans. Oh, not that Sean Evans. It's not that spicy. The story this movie is based off is called Dread, and it is from Books of Blood, Volume 2 by Clive Barker. Books of Blood is a 6-series horror anthology of a bunch of sadistic, surreal, and gut-wrenching horror stories. A lot of infamous Clive Barker stories and movies have come from this saga. Midnight Meat Train starring Bradley Cooper, even The Forbidden, which is the origin of Candyman. But I'm a little bit excited starting off with Dread because I feel like from all the Clive Barker movies I've seen, even though there's not really that many, this one feels the most grounded in reality. Clive Barker is very supernatural, fantastical, theatrical. The man had Riz before Riz was even a word. The plot follows at a small college. Psychology major Stephen Grace meets fellow student Quaid, and together they decide to team up and do a study on fear. Pretty much a documentary film style, interviewing people to reveal their deepest, darkest secrets, irrationalities, and torment. Right off the bat, Quaid is kind of a little unsettling. He's kind of like a tool, a douchebag if you will, but there's something creepy to him. It reveals early on that when he was a young boy, he watched his parents get brutally axe murdered by a killer that had never been caught. So this is kind of the drive behind why he wants to do this fear study, because obviously he has no closure. There's something going on in his mind. He's very terrified all the time, and maybe this could be some form of therapy for him. He asks Steven to do this study with him. Steven's a little bit reluctant. He reveals that not only did his father die in a car crash, but his brother did too. And Steven is tormented by his past as well, thinking maybe I could have been in that car with my brother. And together they have a very odd dichotomy. They don't really have a great friendship. I mean, the actors' chemistry together is very well, but you can tell that their friendship is very surface level. Quaid is very selfish, and as he starts to unravel through the film, we see that it's more of that this fear study is less about Steven's thesis and more so about Quaid's desires. The two men recruit Steven's friend Cheryl to be a part of the fear study. They pick her to be the editor because she is great with film. They start doing the first batch of interviews, trying to get all these random college students to reveal their darkest fears, and they're not really cutting it for Quaid. Quaid quickly becomes dissatisfied because he wants something real, intense, and like he feels like a lot of these people are just saying cliche stuff like, oh, I'm afraid of clowns, I'm afraid of the boogeyman, I'm afraid of these irrational things, but he really wants to dig down deep to the core, the heart of darkness, and really wants people to say what they're genuinely scared of, because dude saw his parents get killed. So all these other people that are like, I'm afraid of the lights being off. He's like, no, dude, watch your dad get axed and then tell me that's what you're afraid of. And throughout the movie, Quaid just keeps showing that he's a red flag. He gets into a fight with Steven, smashes his watch because Steven has a watch that he likes to, like, reminds him to do certain things. And Quaid's like, you're afraid, dude. You're afraid to just live life to the fullest. And Quaid does this throughout the movie. He just starts beef with Steven, and Steven's like, dude, this guy sucks. Cheryl decides to take part in the fear study more than just the editor when she says she wants to be interviewed, and she reveals that as a child she was molested by her father. He worked at a meat packing plant and smelled of meat while doing things to her, so to this day she cannot stand the smell of meat and refuses to eat it. This idea essentially thrills Quaid. He's like, yeah, that's fear right there. That's traumatic. We love that. And there are some that come into play later in the movie, like this one dude who says he's afraid of being deaf. Like Quaid said, he just wants honest to God trauma from his subjects. Steven starts to get fed up, and he's like, well, what's your trauma, bro? If you're so obsessed with everyone else, what's your deal? And he refuses to tell them, like the coward he is. He's like, I don't have to speak to you. I'm the mastermind behind the study. But after having one of his night terrors and he wakes up to Steven waking him, saying, "Are you okay?" He finally confesses, "Yo, my parents were killed when I was young." It's very tormenting, and throughout the movie, we do see hallucinations from him seeing his parents get killed all over again. He does have a lot of dread and trauma built up inside of him, even though he's trying to play the cool guy. Quaid starts to slowly unravel where he purchases the identical car that Steven's brother had when Steven's brother crashed and died, and he's trying to essentially egg Steven on to get a part of this experiment. Now he's like, "Bro, face your fear, confront the beast," they say, or face the beast. Steven is mildly shaken by this. He's not too concerned. He's either really good at hiding how he feels, or he does have closure and coping mechanism skills that makes him sane and rational, because clearly Quaid is kind of losing it. One of Steven's friends, Abby, has a dark birthmark kind of all over her body from her face all the way down, and she's very insecure about it, and she hates it. She feels like an outcast and ugly and not beautiful by it. She offers to do an interview too, and she wants to talk about that. She has a fear of being teased or shunned because of it. At first, she does the interview only with Steven, and then she begins stripping down to reveal herself and tries to make a move on Steven. And Steven doesn't want to reject her, but he has feelings for Cheryl already, and he kind of rejects her, and it's sad. It's a subtle sadness because her fear comes to life right there, even though in her own selfish way she's blaming Steven, like, "See, you're proving my point," but he's like, "Yo, I have like a girl already." But Steven is getting better too. He tells Quaid, he's like, "I'm ready to use that car. I'm gonna take Cheryl on a date. I'm gonna face my fears, bro." We see early in the movie that Quaid is an avid painter and likes to do like the Titanic Jack vibe, where he gets a pretty girl and paints her naked, and Abby asks if Quaid can paint her because she really wants to feel beautiful herself. And again, throughout the movie, Quaid becomes more and more unhinged. They interview another person of this girl who suffers from agoraphobia and had to be taken care of by her mother, with whom she formed a hateful yet dependent relationship with. After her mother passed, she attempted suicide and legally died, but was brought back to life. She claims that she came back completely fearless, and this pissed Quaid's off. He's like, "No, something has to scare you. No one's fearless. Stop being a cliche." And he pretty much attacks her, and they send her home. They're like, "Dude, we're not trying to catch a court case. What is your damage?" And of course, Quaid apologizes again. Also, when Quaid does all these paintings, Steven asked him one day, he's like, "Is it like your profession?" He's like, "No, it's just a hobby, but also I like to trash them anyway." So later on in the movie, after Quaid keeps losing all these chances with Cheryl and Steven, Cheryl goes back to Quaid's house to get her equipment, and as she goes into the basement, she sees all these paintings of these beautiful women splattered with red paint that looks like blood, and they're all mutilated, showing some serious derangedness from Quaid. Quaid finds her there and expresses his desire to take the study to the next level. Meanwhile, Steven discovers that Quaid has already submitted the thesis despite the incompletion, and later finds Quaid outside of school in his brother's car. Steven's like, "Yo, bro, what are you doing?" Quaid's like, "Get him, dude. I'm sorry for I turned in the project because I threw a fit, and I'm just being a prick, dude. I'm sorry." So Steven gets in the car, and again, Quaid starts to go spastastic. He starts to speed the car as fast as he can. He goes, "Face your fear. Think about dying. This is what life's about. Don't be scared." And then he almost crashes the car, and this just sends Steven over the edge. He's like, "I'm done with you, man." They get into a little fight again. Steven's like, "I'm done with you, bro. Like, get off my nuts. You're a wacko." So Quaid gets revenge by posting that video of, because remember, during the interview, Abby undresses in front of Steven and he rejects her. Quaid had that filming the whole time, so he posts it in the college for everyone to see, and this just devastates Abby. He says some pretty despicable stuff to her in the video also, and this sends Abby over the top, and she tries to harm herself using bleach to scrub off her birthmarks. And then also the dude who talked about his fear of being deaf, Quaid gets him. Quaid is deciding to elevate these fear studies, and he does something very brutal to this kid, making him deaf, and then he kidnaps Cheryl, locks her in a room, and tries to force her to eat meat. And he's slowly becoming a killer. Essentially, it's like a jigsaw almost, except for making them pay for what they did. He's trying to make them do something to move past their fear. And after Steven sees Abby in the hospital, he goes to confront Quaid with a part I really love. He goes to Quaid's house, he steals an axe, and he starts slowly walking up the stairs, smashing it on the steps, taunting him, reenacting the moments that's when his parents were brutally murdered by the axe killer, and it's very interesting because Steven's not really like that. So to see him kind of, he doesn't really snap. He just is like trying to give Quaid a taste of his own medicine. It's refreshing. You're like, yeah, dude, give it to him. But Quaid snaps, pulls out a gun. He's like, bro, you ain't gonna do ass. So he knocks Steven out. And when Steven wakes up, he pretty much is strapped to a chair and he watches an entire little documentary made by Quaid of him torturing Cheryl, because not only did he take the deaf kid and torment him, he took Cheryl, locked her in a room with a piece of meat, and said she could not leave until she eats the meat. And then the movie concludes with very well writing. So essentially that kid that Quaid deafens, he kind of spares his life and takes him into an alley and abandons him. And when Steven is at the hospital visiting Abby, the kid that got his ears shot through is also at the hospital too. And Steven doesn't see him, but he sees Steven and he remembers. He's like, hey, that's one of the guys a part of the fear study. Because when Quaid kidnapped him and did all that stuff, Quaid didn't hide himself. He showed him who he was. So the dude that's all deaf looks at Steven like he's a part of the evil. He's like, why is he here? Is he following me? Why are these guys messing with me? At the house, after Steven sees this footage of his girlfriend getting tormented and starving to death and hallucinating because she won't eat the meat until she finally does, there's a heavy conversation until they hear a window shatter in the house, and Quaid's like, who did you come here with? And Steven's like, no one. So as Quaid goes to investigate, Steven breaks out of his chair, tiptoes down the stairs, and as Steven sneaks up behind Quaid with a knife, the dude from the hospital picked up the axe in the house somewhere and goes to swing it at Quaid, but Quaid dodges and it gets Steven right in the chest. Oh man, and I did not expect that to come. As Quaid watches Steven die, he sneaks up behind the deaf guy and shoots him in the head, killing him. Looking down at the ground, he sees Steven begging for his life, and he's looking into his eyes, watching the flicker go out, watching him terrified, watching that dread build up because Steven knows he's dying. And we get a narration from Quaid of him talking about this, and it's very profound and scary and eerie. Watching Steven die and seeing Steven face his fear, not being able to face the beast won. It was fixing Quaid, but at the same time, it was kind of poetic because he watched Steven get killed with an axe the same way he watched his parents get killed by an axe, but he got to kill the killer that killed Steven. So it was like this double sword where he's like watching Steven die and watching me save himself was kind of what brought him to justify everything to be okay. And then the movie ends with a very dark note where he opens up a closet door and Abby's all chained up in there, and he throws Steven's body in and he says, let's see how long it takes for you to eat that, and he slams the door and the movie ends. All in all, what do I think about this movie? I feel like it's very riveting. Some might call it slow paced, but I feel like it tells a good story, it weaves a yarn, and it creates the characters very well, because you start to feel for Steven and Cheryl and Abby, and you start to despise Quaid, but you have hopefulness for Quaid that he's just as scared as them and he won't admit it, and maybe he can come back to good by doing the study with them. It's filmed very beautifully. It's dark and eerie. The tension's there, the music, the pacing is there. There's no bad acting. Everything that happens in it is believable, and even though the excitement comes in the last 30 minutes of the movie, it does build a good suspense, and it is eerie, and some of the more brutal scenes kind of do make your skin crawl. Well, alright guys, have you seen this movie? Comment down below. What's your favorite Clive Barker movie? Because I got 2 more coming. They're going to be a surprise, so I hope you like the choices I chose. What's your biggest fear? Irrational or true? Comment down below. I promise I won't study you for it. I'm just curious. But alright guys, that's the video. Subscribe, give me a thumber, hit that ding-a-ling button harassing you, telling you, hey, it's me, I'm here, and I'm gonna say it 1 time for the 1 time and 2 time for the O's. Give me a hell yeah. Horror. That's what I'm talking about. Honest to God, trauma.